Any trade for Jimmy Butler would likely involve a number of teams, but how does that help the Heat? Plus, does any team actually want him on their roster? We'll break it all down in today's episode of Locked On Heat.
You are Locked On Heat, your daily Miami Heat podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, welcome to Locked On Heat, your daily podcast on the Miami Heat, whether you're tuning in on YouTube or your favorite podcast app. Thanks so much for making Locked On Heat your first listen every day. I'm Wes Goldberg here with David Ramill. Both of us are credentialed Heat media members who cover this team every day, and today's episode is sponsored by Prize Picks. Now's the perfect time to join. Download the app today and use the code LOCKEDONNBA to get $50 instantly when you play your first $5 lineup. That's right, no need to win to get the bonus. It's guaranteed. Prize Picks, run your game. Have a fun show for you today. We're going to hear from Locked On Grizzlies and get their best pitch for Jimmy Butler. Plus, we wish Tyler Herro a happy birthday later on. But first, we've got our latest reporting on the Jimmy Butler situation. Here's what we learned over the weekend and over these last few days. First, according to Mark Stein, there are no shortage of teams looking to help facilitate a deal for Jimmy, including Toronto, Minnesota, and Detroit. Less clear which teams actually want Jimmy Butler. And then from Brian Windhorst, after Jimmy Butler's meeting with Mickey Arison last Thursday, the Heat are ramping up talks. They want to move on him. They want to move him before the trade deadline, but Jimmy Butler's priority remains to play in Phoenix. So based on even me personally being around the team after Jimmy's return here, not surprised that the Heat are hoping to move on from him sooner rather than later, preferably before the trade deadline. There's no question the discomfort created by this situation has permeated the entire organization, every level of it. This is a very human thing that's going on. The Heat want it to be over, but they're also making it clear that they're not going to sabotage their future just to move on from Jimmy Butler. I don't think that they should sabotage their future to move on from Jimmy, but it's refreshing to know that they're seriously engaged with this trade market. And if anybody can find a creative solution to this, I think it's Miami's front office, given their track record, David.
Do we think that maybe that win against San Antonio did anything to kind of alleviate some of that pressure? Because it just feels like it's building, or is that just a temporary salve over what's too deep a wound to be healed at any point in time other than by trading him?
Winning helps alleviate the pressure, but that feels like a Band-Aid. Yeah. It doesn't actually feel like a fix. And Jimmy Butler's stance has not changed. He wants to get traded. And as long as his stance hasn't changed, Miami's can't, right? Because they're still not going to give him that contract extension. And I don't think that there's a world, even if Jimmy Butler were to ball out. And that's the other thing we learned after the first game. Jimmy Butler was asked, what would happen by Tim Reynolds of the Associated Press. He said, what would happen if February 7th comes along and you're still playing for the Miami Heat? You have not gotten traded. Jimmy Butler said, I'll hoop. And I thought that was pretty interesting that Jimmy would go ahead and put that out there instead of just sticking with the no comment kind of line that he was going with over the last, minutes before that. That could remain an option. And I think the Heat believe that might be, their last sort of card here is, hey, you know what? We're going to look for a trade. We're not going to sabotage our future. We're not taking on Bradley Beal. We're not going to take on these long-term contracts. We're not going to make a bad deal just for the sake of moving on, because we also think that for whatever reason, if a trade doesn't materialize, we think you're going to play and we think you're going to be motivated just to kind of help boost your own market. If you play well between February 7th and whenever the end of our season ends up being, then you're going to help your own free agent market. It behooves you to play out the rest of your contract. But at the same time, I don't think that they obviously don't want this lingering. Like I said, there is, from every layer of the organization, that feeling is there. It has permeated the entire organization. There's an awkwardness. There's a real motivation to kind of move on. But the Heat aren't going to just take any deal to move on.
It's a smart approach. And I think maybe some fans might be frustrated because they just want him to take whatever deal is there. But this is a lot more complicated. There are a number of teams involved. And it's just, in order for everybody to get something that they want. And again, I think this is maybe applicable to lots of fields, but the right deal is one where everybody feels like they got a little bit screwed. And I think this is what's probably going to happen for Miami is that you're going to see people saying, oh, no, they didn't get what they want. And then other people saying, oh, Miami got, they more than they deserve, etc. Jimmy's going to get his deal, but he's not going to get quite the deal he wanted or something to that effect. Like, it's not going to work out exactly how everybody wants it. And that's entirely fine. Like, that's probably how this scenario plays out because you have to have all these different teams involved. And look, I mean, I know you've brought it up before. I've brought it up before. Pat Riley, this front office, responsible for what had been, and I don't know if it's finally been surpassed or not, the largest trade in NBA history with a number of teams and a number of players being moved. Like they held that record for a long time. So this is not anything new to this front office. They're perfectly comfortable making sure that all these teams are involved. You give a little here, take a little there, and next thing you know, you can come up with an agreement where everybody feels like, well, we didn't do too badly. And that's something we're probably going to see in the next couple of weeks. It has played out so strangely from just a few weeks ago. I mean, time has certainly flown, but at the same time, we were just talking about this right before the New Year's and the fact that Jimmy Butler looked like everything was fine, and then all of a sudden it wasn't. And then all of a sudden everything was just really exacerbated. It's moved forward extremely quickly. He's been out because of the 7-game suspension, and now he's back. But this was the ultimate scenario. This had to play out this way, where they were going to try to find a way to trade him as soon as possible because you cannot have him hanging on there. As good as he's looked in stretches, and I think you and I can both agree that he has not been fully engaged over the last 2 games that he's played since his return. As good as he has looked at moments, he just hasn't been the dominant player that we expect him to be, and that being the
and he
case,
won't be.
He won't. He can't. He has to be able. Like, that's not saying that, and again, accusations like this, these are subjective. It's hard to prove. I'm sure he would say that he's hooping at 100%, but that's clearly
he's not. Come on.
Also.
Yeah, he's clearly not. And I don't know. I said this after his first game back. He looks like a guy who hates his job, but needs to pay the bills. He's going out there. He's doing the work. He's doing the work more than he did against the Pacers and against the Pelicans because that got him suspended. Then he lost $2 million. So he's going out there and doing more than that because he doesn't want to lose another $2 million. He's going out there and he looks like a guy who hates his job. And that guy who hates his job, who has been punished a little bit, reprimanded a little bit, is going to do the work, but he's not going for a promotion anymore. He's looking for other jobs. He's taking interviews. He's on the websites putting his resume out there. That's what Jimmy's doing, right? He's going to do the work. He won't get reprimanded again, but he's not looking for a promotion. He's looking for a new job. And that's what he wants. And until he gets it, that's what it's going to be. So there is no world where Jimmy Butler plays it out. Even if he tries to ball out after, February 6th, the trade deadline, you're not going to get playoff Jimmy. I don't think you get like Jimmy Butler from the Detroit Pistons. I think you get a Jimmy Butler who plays at a 80% level, gets to the season, maybe,
that sounds
70%.
high. I mean,
right, maybe. It won't be full blown. Like he probably won't score 30 points again. Heck, I don't know if he scores 25 points again this season.
Yeah.
Probably be like 18, 20 points. Some of them by accident, and that'll be what it is. So that's where the Heat are. The other part of this too is, to me, when I hear that report from Windhorst saying they have that Jimmy Butler meets with Mickey Arison, and after that and that was Thursday, and then on Friday morning they start ramping up their trade talks in a very different way. It's like it's that chair where the guy leaning back in the chair and then he starts leaning forward in the game chair. The Heat are leaning forward in the gaming chair now, and that to me is huge because before it was just Phoenix with a relatively new front office and an ownership group trying to grease the wheels on some of these trades. And now you've got Pat Riley, Andy Ellisberg, Nick Arison, like this group that's been around for a very long time that has a lot more connections across the league than Matt Ishbia and that group in Phoenix. That changes everything in terms of the landscape of this trade and how realistic it is that something can happen, because now you have the front office that actually has that ability, like you said, this ability to pull off trades with multiple teams and get everybody a little bit of something that they want in order for them to pull the trigger on it. You got that. Now you have that front office involved instead of just the Phoenix front office trying to do all the heavy lifting here.
Yeah.
That to me increases the odds of something happening.
No, I think that's 100% spot on. I mean, a motivated team, again, ultimately you'll probably wind up taking less of than what you expected or less than what you want. But in order to move forward with this, that's just how you have to operate. And you're just at this point, this is a negotiation. It's been a negotiation that's been going on for weeks, maybe even longer than what we actually know. And that being the case, maybe you're not going to get 100% of what you want, but you don't want to wind up with just 50% of what you want either. So you're trying to get as close to that 100 as you possibly can. And that's what we're going to see over the next week or two, is where they're just getting one more team involved. It's like, okay, you want X, I can get you that, but we're going to have to involve X team. So that's probably how it's going to play out. It's so interesting and sad at the same time. And I know we're kind of putting the emotional aspect on hold here as we're trying to just go through the transactional nature of what's taking place here. But it just, I saw comments recently even from and his feedback was that many of us, this had been such a perfect relationship between Jimmy and the Heat, but things have soured so quickly, and it's just very bizarre. I think everybody's kind of in shock because it just seemed like this was something that was going to be, if not repaired, it was going to at least never be at this point that it's digressed to over the last couple of weeks. But we'll see how.
I've been on record. I thought this was coming as soon as they didn't offer him the extension. As soon as Pat Riley's comments, I'm like, nope, this is the only way that it's going to play out. I'm not even trying to do a victory lap here. I'm just saying, like, I'm not surprised. Like, you kind of made your bed and now you have to sleep in it. If you're both sides, right? I don't think either side handled this all that well. Nothing's happened. I'm not ready to even have the emotional part of this conversation because nothing's actually happened. But I'll tell you this: that weight is weighing on this organization. I cannot express enough how every layer of the organization is feeling the weight of how awkward this is, and there is a real motivation to just move on and understand. Yeah, it kind of sucks how it ended up, but here it is.
Yeah,
this is what it is.
Yeah.
The Grizzlies have been mentioned as a potential suitor for Jimmy Butler, but Butler reportedly does not want to play there. That said, we hear from Locked On Grizzlies about whether or not they think Butler is worth the risk after this.
Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. From the first whistle to the final drive, FanDuel makes the NFL playoffs even more exciting because right now, new customers can bet $5 and you get $300 in bonus bets if you win your first bet. That's $300 to keep the action going. The FanDuel app is so easy to navigate, and the variety of bets keeps every game exciting. Plus, when you win, this is great, you get paid instantly. No waiting around for your winnings. Whether you're betting on your favorite team or just looking to add some extra excitement to the playoffs, FanDuel has you covered. So just visit FanDuel.com and join today and get started with $300 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com. Make this playoff season unforgettable with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. We'll be right back.
Thanks again for making Locked On Heat your first listen every day. Your favorite NBA team has a free daily newsletter. Introducing the Locked On Heat newsletter, one stop for ultimate Heat and league coverage with local analysis and amazing writing from Katie Heindel, Mike Shearer, and Locked On fantasy basketball tips from Josh Lloyd. Sign up for free now at LockedOnDaily.com. So we're using the might of the Locked On Podcast Network to field offers for Jimmy Butler. And this first one comes from Locked On Grizzlies, who had been mentioned as a potential landing spot for Jimmy before his camp informed them not to trade for him. Here's the Grizzlies' response.
So let me get this straight. I'm supposed to submit a realistic trade offer for a guy who apparently, via NBA senior insider Chris Haynes, has made it very clear that he doesn't want to be part of the Memphis Grizzlies. I thought we had moved on from this, but I'll play along. For the good of content, hashtag content, I will play along. I'm Joe Mullinax of Locked On Grizzlies. Jimmy Butler doesn't want to be in Memphis. I don't want him in Memphis either. And the most frustrating thing for me about Jimmy Butler is this. I seriously contemplated a package that would have involved Brandon Clark. Marcus Smart has barely played, right? He's played 30-some% of the Grizzlies game. Brandon Clark has been a part of the Grizzlies core since 2019, the draft pick after John Morant in that draft. A key, versatile, defending big in the front court. Him plus Marcus Smart, whatever other money, whatever draft picks Miami wanted, and Jimmy Butler isn't interested? Get out of here with that. I don't want you either, Jimmy.
So there's Joe Mullinax with a strong statement, as always. He does a great job over at Locked On Grizzlies. But what do you think? Not worth the risk, not even for Marcus Smart, Brandon Clark, and I would assume Luke Kennard's expiring contract would have to be in there to make the money work. What do you think?
Yeah, it's really interesting. Again, this is a team that isn't necessarily uber motivated to try and build something, but they want to be able to achieve something that they have in their franchise history, which is to get to the NBA Finals or and win a championship. They have a lot of what you're looking for in terms of a young player or a good young core with Jaren Jackson Jr., John Morant, of course, Desmond Bane, etc. Like this seems like the type of team that's ripe for that sort of an addition. You think back to, say the Oklahoma City Thunder when they had Harden and Westbrook and Durant and what looked like a ride that was never going to end until it did, and you never wind up going back to the finals at all. And so this is an opportunity for them to acquire a proven playoff winner, a veteran, etc., and they don't want him. I think Joe is as plugged as anybody and kind of feels the pulse of the Grizzlies fandom. And if that's the case, it's a really tough sell. And I think Jimmy has not endeared himself to a lot of teams around the league. Like, this is a risk for a lot of teams, and I think that's how it's viewed. And that being the case, the market just seems, if anything, like to tie it into what we were talking about in the first segment. This is why you have to get a number of teams involved, because only one team apparently wants Jimmy Butler, and that's Phoenix. And that's with a desperate sense of urgency, the same kind of desperation that had them adding Kevin Durant and Bradley Beal, despite his contract and everything else, because they want to do something that they have not ever done, which is win a championship either. And so this is kind of where you're at right now. And to look at Memphis fans and being like, no, we'd rather be okay. We'd rather kind of try to carve our own way to the conference finals if we can make it and not have to deal with the Jimmy mess. I think that's pretty telling. As far as the deal is concerned.
Well, wait, can I stop you there? Because I understand it from Memphis's, like if you're a Memphis fan and Jimmy Butler has basically said, at first, I'm going to play for any of the 29 other teams other than Miami. And then he basically says, and also Memphis. Just like random stray like shot at the Grizzlies. Every other team's fine, right? Not mentioned the Wizards, like nothing. Just like not Miami, because these bridges have been burnt to the ground, and also not Memphis, because screw them. Like if I'm a Grizzlies fan, I'm just like, screw you, Jimmy. We don't want you here either. Everything's risk reward, and for the Grizzlies, they're a top 4 team in the Western Conference. They've got John Morant, Jaren Jackson, like they've got their thing. They got a good coach, all this stuff. It's a good roster. Now Jimmy does make sense for them on the court, right? Which is probably why like a team like the Wizards wasn't, mentioned here, and why the Grizzlies might have had some exploratory phone calls about Jimmy Butler, because they say, yeah, our one kind of weakness is small forward. Jalen Wells has been good as a rookie. He's a rookie. When you talk about going up against like Dallas or OKC in the Denver in the playoffs, how are you really going to trust Jalen Wells? I don't know. Having somebody like Jimmy Butler, a proven playoff performer like that in that spot, makes a ton of sense. And then clearly word got out that maybe the Grizzlies were entertaining the notion of adding Jimmy Butler, and Jimmy Butler's camp got in front of it and said, nope, we don't want to play for you. Don't trade for me. I'm not going to sign an extension with you. It's not going to happen. Now, the Grizzlies could still do the trade despite that, right? And say, you know what? You want to walk away after free agency? You want to opt out of $52 million? Be my guest. They can make the same bet that Toronto made with Kawhi in 2019. But, Marcus Smart, Luke Kennard, Brandon Clark. Clark is an important part of that team. I get it. You got to get rid of something, though. Like you said, not everybody's going to be happy with every part of the deal. But even if I'm Miami, I guess you would have to take it. Can I get a draft pick back or something? But I don't know how much of that I'm excited about.
I like Clark. I do like Clark a lot. Marcus Smart is older. I don't know if they shelve him. Like he's not the true point guard he's not the true point guard that a lot of fans have been clamoring for, as far as in a position of need for Miami. He's more kind of playing off ball at this point, and he just doesn't really handle as much and doesn't create much for others. So he's a streaky shooter. He's going to flop a lot, so you'll probably wind up loving him, unfortunately, although maybe your Celtics hatred runs too deep to actually accept him on the roster. I don't know.
I've always actually had a weird appreciation for Marcus Smart. But this would be Kyle Lowry 2.0. It's like, yep, we're going to get him. Getting older, best years are probably behind him.
Yeah. Kennard, a good shooter, but kind of superfluous, I guess. I mean, you can never have too much shooting. He's kind of streaky, and I think there's a reason why he's been traded for I mean, how many teams has he played on
Yeah.
now? Like he's the Clippers, Pistons, etc. So like,
Detroit, yeah.
yeah,
He
yeah.
would be in
He
there.
just seems like the throw-in
But he
guy.
would be expiring salary would come off your books, and that would be the most valuable part of him.
Yeah, the big part of this was Clark, who unfortunately is also injury prone, but he is a versatile big with a lot of effort. I mean, I like the way he's attacking and the way he kind of finishes and stuff like that. He just seems like a good player to have around. I think a guy that a lot of Heat fans would appreciate, but he's not Jimmy Butler. So again, you're getting some good things. I mean, again, not to say things, you're getting some good players as replacements for Jimmy Butler, but they're not really replacing Jimmy Butler, nor should that be the expectation moving forward.
You got to get some picks back if that's the sort of deal. But it's beggars can't be choosers, and if the Heat really want to get off, like it might just look like this. Marcus Smart's contract doesn't come off the books, neither does Brandon Clark's. So you're not really getting the cap relief you want out of this either. Maybe you can reroute Smart or Clark. Even Clark has a lot of value. Maybe you can reroute these guys and get more of that draft compensation, perhaps the salary cap relief, and that's when you kind of get all these other teams involved. But it wouldn't be. But what's the point? Because apparently it's a non-starter. If you ask Joe, the Grizzlies don't want it.
Well, it would be also. It kind of flaunts in front of what we were saying in the first segment in terms of a multi-team trade probably being the likely scenario for this to be a done deal rather than just a one-on-one transaction. I mean, you kind of hinted at maybe you could get another deal there, but another team involved in order to kind of make things a little bit more palatable. But it doesn't seem like it really makes a lot of sense in this kind of scenario because it feels like it would be more of a one-on-one swap. Does anybody want Marcus Smart at this point? Like, is there a team that's kind of saying, yeah, we really want an older, aging, kind of streaky shooting two guard that gives a lot of effort when he's out there,
Who's been hurt all season? No, there's no team that wants that.
Right. Is Kennard a player of need for anybody? Sure. Again,
one year deal. They say we need some shooting off the bench. We can use him, but I don't know that you're like banging the door in Memphis, like get us Luke Kennard. Like it just might be like, hey, you guys want him and some salary cap relief in the summer? Like, yeah, I guess, It's kind of the whole thing here is just sort of a shoulder shrug, right? And very rarely do shoulder shrug trades happen. It's just in the NBA, it's a lot easier to just not do anything than just shrug your shoulders and do something. Tyler Herro turned 25 on Monday, so we take a look at where the biggest change in his career has been, plus what the next 2 seasons of his career could look like. We do that, and we talk about what could be the greatest birthday present of all for him coming up next year on Locked On Heat.
Today's episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. Basketball season is heating up, and there's no better way to get real money action than by watching your favorite NBA stars with Prize Picks. Whether you're a diehard fan or you just love the little friendly competition, Prize Picks makes it fun and easy to turn your basketball knowledge into cash. Basketball, you're listening to the show, you're watching the show. Why don't you turn that knowledge into a chance to make a little extra? Here's how it works. You just pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 1,000. That's 1,000 times your cash. If you think LeBron's going to drop 30 points or maybe Luke is going to get more than 8 assists in a particular game, well, Prize Picks lets you make your predictions, and you can put your money where your mouth is in just 60 seconds. And it's so convenient. Again, their Prize Picks flex play option. If one of your picks doesn't hit, you can still double your money. Plus, once you hit, you get your money fast, as quickly as 15 minutes sometimes. It's honestly the best way to keep the game exciting during this long NBA season, especially if you're a little frustrated with a Jimmy Butler situation. But now is the perfect time to join. Download the app today and use the code LOCKEDONNBA, and you get $50 instantly when you play your first $5 lineup. That's right. No need to even win to get the bonus. It's guaranteed. Prize Picks. Run your game. We'll be right back.
Thanks again for making Locked On Heat your first listen every day. The best way to support the show, like and subscribe on YouTube. Follow us on your favorite podcast app. To the Locked On Heat Insider community, you can sign up for free using the link in the show notes. Daily Jimmy Butler updates, plus the opportunity to ask us questions for our post-game shows. You get first dibs at that. Free for 14 days. We have 16 days before the trade deadline. Sign up for free, 14 days. You're going to get all the trade deadline intel on Jimmy Butler and everything else concerning the Miami Heat between now and then, not just from our own reporting, but the national reporting. So you don't have to go digging online to go find all the latest news and rumors. We just send it right to you for free. 14 days. Link, show notes, sign up. Happy birthday to Tyler Herro. Turns 25 on Monday. He's averaging career highs in points and efficiency numbers. We've talked a lot about his all-star case, and it does not appear from the fan voting, then he's going to get in on that. But that's not surprising. He should have a chance, though, based on the coaches and media voting. I think based on just the way that we've seen teams, even the Spurs, having Stephon Castle face guard him, defend him the way that they defend Steph Curry, having like Amen Thompson when he played the Rockets a few nights ago, having him, their premier perimeter defender, guarding Tyler Herro. Like the way that coaches have shown their respect for Tyler Herro on the court, like they are game planning not for Bam. They are not game planning for Jimmy Butler. They're game planning for Tyler Herro defensively. And so for them to do that, that is an ultimate, well, not maybe the ultimate sign. I suppose the ultimate sign of respect would be, yeah, we respect you on the court. We're also going to give you the ultimate head nod here and get you into the All-Star game. That to me would be the best possible gift for Tyler's 25th birthday.
Yeah, no doubt about it. We talked about this before. Like, I think we're starting to see a lot more respect and appreciation for a player that's maturing and coming into his own in terms of how he can lead a team and be their best scorer. And that being the case, no doubt about it, being an all-star would certainly be as great a gift as you could possibly imagine for him. In terms of the all-star campaign here, it's really hard to predict. There's always going to be a player who gets snubbed or a player that feels like they're left out. And I think that's still going to be the case this year. Like you have a player like, Tyrese Halliburton, who's been kind of inconsistent this season. And I don't know that you could make a case for him being an all-star, certainly not more consistent than Tyler Herro, but he's an all-star. He's a familiar face. He's certainly gotten a lot more of the popular vote thus far. And that being the case, how do other coaches around the league view him in his season? Again, just as it is with media members, coaches, they can't watch every game. They can't watch what Tyler's doing. They just see the final numbers and have to come up with a conclusion and be like, oh, he's averaging X points. Well, that certainly seems all-star worthy. But, to see him change the course of a game the way he does, when he becomes that ignitable version of himself and he just shoots and he has those monster quarters where he hits 4 3-pointers, those are the kinds of performances you need to see. You need to see the fourth quarter against the Detroit Pistons, albeit unfortunately in a loss, because those are the games where you go, damn, this is a different version of Tyler Herro than I remember. And that's where kind of the change in your perspective happens so that you can vote him into the All-Star. So it's going to be interesting to see how a player like Herro is viewed around the league. But I think it certainly bodes well right now. And this isn't homerism. This isn't just because we're covering him and the team he happens to play for. I just, if I had to guess, whether it be a player like him or Tyrese or someone else on that bubble, even a guy like Tyrese Maxey.
Can I give you the number? Can I give you the names? Because I'm doing it right now. You've got 2 guys in the backcourt. You've got 2 backcourt reserves, and then you got 2 wild cards. The front court in the East is shallow. Like there's not a lot of names on there. I would guess both of the wild card guys end up being backcourt players because there's a lot more backcourt players in the East than there are front court players. So just like for the front court, it's Giannis, Tatum, Cat. Those are probably going to be the 3 starters in the front court.
Yeah.
Franz Wagner probably gets in, I would imagine. I'm going to go ahead and put Jaylen Brown in there. 25 games. I think he'll probably get it. I think the coaches will have to give the Magic somebody, and he's the only guy. But yeah, maybe we could debate it. But Franz, Mobley, Jaylen Brown, those are probably like, even if you're debating it, Jalen Johnson from Atlanta, but like that's it. Like those are period. Those are the front court guys that deserve even all-star consideration. So when we get to the guards, LaMelo Ball is really screwing this up because he's running away with the fan vote. He's going to get in probably as a starter. He's averaging 30 points on about as many shots. His efficiencies are terrible. His assist-to-turnover ratio is blah. He's playing for a losing bad Charlotte Hornets team, and he's a big reason why like they're on-off number. But he's going to make it because of the fan vote, and he's screwing it all up. Because to me, if I were on there, I wouldn't.
It's a weighted point system? Is that how it works? Does the fan vote count for?
He's running away with the fan vote. Like it'd be a bad.
The coaches can just say, "I don't care what the fans want."
50% of the vote.
I mean, this is like when Zaza Pachulia had the whole nation of Georgia voting for him. Like that doesn't count.
Yeah, but he wasn't number 1 among front court players in the West. LaMelo's number 1.
He was for a while too.
Maybe not.
He had a huge. Yeah,
I would hope so then. So you got, but LaMelo is going to be at least considered. I think Donovan Mitchell and Jalen Brunson are locks, either as starters or one of them coming off the bench. Cade Cunningham at this point, 24, 10, and 7. He's a lock. And then Lillard, I think, is a lock. So that basically opens up 2 spots for Herro, Garland, Trae Young, and Halliburton. I don't think Halliburton gets in. I wouldn't put Trae Young in. His numbers are just not very good. He is leading the league in assists. That's about the only thing that he's doing well right now. So Garland and Herro could both get in. And that's probably where I end up on this, unless Garland gets pushed out, or one of them could get pushed out by LaMelo. So it would be Herro. It might be Herro or Garland. And if the Cavs already have Mobley and Mitchell, do the Heat get rewarded with one guy? Do the media and coaches sort of split the difference that way? Perhaps.
No.
So I think that's what the hope is. In terms of, he's 25 years old now. He's been in the league for almost 6 seasons. He's in his 6th season right now. I was looking at there's been a lot about Tyler Herro talking about how he looks to emulate Steph Curry's shot chart and all these things. I looked at, and just, I know what I'm doing is blasphemous, but I'm doing it anyway. Steph Curry at 25 years old, here's what he averaged. 24 points per game on 42% shooting from 3-point range, 8.5 assists, 4 rebounds. Tyler Herro at 25 years old, 24 points a game, 40% on threes, 5 assists, 6 rebounds. Very similar scoring numbers, very similar shot charts. Now, Steph also made his first All-Star game of his career at 25 years old. It was his 5th season. Tyler Herro could make his first All-Star game at 25 years old in his 6th season. Then Steph, obviously, after winning his first All-Star game, won back-to-back MVPs the next 2 seasons. When I ask you what the next 5 years for Tyler Herro looks like, I do not bring this up in order to just presume that that Tyler Herro is ready to win back-to-back MVPs. That is not at all what I'm saying. But if he could be like, I don't know, 50% of what Steph Curry ended up being over the next 5 years after Steph turned 25 years old, that would be a huge win, considering we're talking about one of the best 15 players of all time in Steph. So
this might sound somewhat blasphemous, but isn't he already kind of like at 50% of what Steph was? Like, isn't part of what made Steph, and again, this is not, and I hope nobody takes this as such, but isn't what made Steph so ridiculously good was the fact that he was changing the game. Like, he was responsible for changing the game at such a huge level and such a huge scale that it was kind of like, wow, we've never seen anything like this before. And now it's kind of not necessarily a ho-hum, or you're kind of used to it, but now there are a lot more players that kind of fit alongside that mold to the point
you got
where,
copycats.
we're talking about Herro, who kind of fits into that same mold. And this is, I think he's, again, not just as good as Steph ever was necessarily, but he is a pretty close approximation of that kind of player. And that being the case, I think you can make an argument that he's probably more than 50% of what Steph was. It's just the games are different now. The style is different. The league is different. And so it's not necessarily as groundbreaking to see a player like Tyler, because it's like, well, you're kind of just used to seeing this because every team has their own version
to your
of
point,
a player like this.
To your point, I was going back. I looked at Steph's first MVP year. He averaged 23.5 points per game.
Right.
It feels like that year he was averaging 40 and making like 18 3-pointers a game because it was so bananas when it was happening. But he was making fewer and taking fewer threes that year than in his first MVP year than Tyler is taking this year when he's a fringe all-star. So that's exactly exact to your point. Over the next 5 years, I hope that Tyler gets the all-star that he wants at least once.
Yeah.
And I think what we see is just more of all right, this guy is a core part of our offense. We're going to keep building around him and Bam and whatever else is around here post Jimmy Butler. And this is our answer to the modern NBA. Tyler Herro, this is our answer to what Steph Curry created and what the road he set the NBA down. This is our answer to that. And if you're any team, you want something like that. You want sort of a Steph Curry disciple, and Tyler Herro is that for Miami.
Yeah, good point. I think he gets the All-Star nod at some point. Like, I don't think he's going to get worse. I think, even though he's going to probably have to share the load as this team. Yeah, that's what my feeling is. Like, he's going to continue to put on the weight that we've already seen make a difference this year. He's going to get to the line more. He's going to earn that kind of respect around the league. The shot has always been a part of his offensive repertoire, and it's going to continue. He's always been a bucket. He's always been a shot maker. It's just the other aspects of his game that he's going to continue to have to work on in order to get that league-wide respect. But I think he's certainly done a heck of a job this year, and I think that's only going to continue to improve. So, yeah, I would say, and I said this before. I remember, it felt like looking back, maybe people have forgotten this, but I was extremely bullish. You and I were both extremely bullish on him. You weren't even covering the team at the time, and you were still extremely bullish about what Tyler could become. And I remember talking to his trainer here in South Florida and saying, in 2020, after his bubble run, this was a two-time or a multi-time All-Star. That was his exact quote at the time, is that this was a multi-time All-Star. And then unfortunately, every summer, the trade scenario, and his name was always up because everybody, kind of just lost hope in what he could
and he wasn't as good.
He
wasn't as good.
He was keep the trajectory in the same angle.
Yeah. That's the other part of this that is so incredible is you don't see players this deep into their careers. In his 6th season, that's half a decade in the NBA, just completely alter, just like throw away your old shot chart and the way that you used to play basketball for your entire life and just be like, I'm going to do it this way now. I'm going to look at Steph Curry's shot chart and I'm just going to emulate that. I'm just going to do this. I'm going to be that now. And it's not just a mindset switch that's so impressive, and certainly that is very impressive, but also just the ability to just say, I want to do this and then execute it just like right away. Almost seamlessly, effortlessly. It's just like, yep, I want to do. It's like Anthony Edwards being like, I want to be a good 3-point shooter. He tried using Damian Lillard's 3-point shot form, and he just said, and he just copied it and just made it part of him. It was like, I didn't know this kind of stuff is possible. It's so impressive. So yeah, I'm also bullish. I'm hoping and optimistic that Tyler Herro does make his first All-Star game because I think it's much more deserved. I would have him over LaMelo. I would have him over Haliburton. I would have him over Trae Young in a heartbeat. Not even a question. Yep. This is a guy who's impacting winning in a meaningful way and has become the star on offense for a Heat team that desperately needs it. Thanks for making Locked On Heat your first listen every day. Like, comment, and subscribe on YouTube. Follow us on your favorite podcast app.